Updated, stepmom banished me from dad's funeral. Now she's regretting it after his will was read. Things have been very devastating for me ever since the sudden demise of my mother. Though it was like 15 years ago, the scars and the events that unfolded after that continued to haunt and traumatize me. I'm 32 male, and this is about my evil stepmother, who has hated my guts ever since she married my dad. It disgusts me even to call her stepmom. Let's just call her Judy. Prior to her entry into our lives, I had a happy childhood with loving parents and an adorable sister. My parents loved each other, and my sister and I used to adore their relationship. Then one fateful day, my mother collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. We never saw her again. I was 17 then, and my sister was merely 13 when we lost our mother. My father was heartbroken. We tried our best to support him. I took care of the house and my sister. I don't know if it was the grief or loneliness that led my father to remarry just 6 months after my mother's demise. It was unexpected. Even my grandparents were shocked by this news. Everyone thought that he was too much into my mother. No one imagined him moving on so fast. Not sure if he had actually moved on or if he married to help himself move on. But we never discussed that part. In fact, my father never told us he was thinking of getting married or that he was seeing someone until a few days before the wedding. Usually, in this case, people involve the kids and make them comfortable with their would-be stepmom before planning a wedding. But Dad didn't do that. I don't know why. Actually, I was very distraught by his second marriage. I couldn't just see any random woman replacing my mother. I wanted to move out of the house. But I couldn't leave my sister alone in that house. Judy was an evil woman. Not that she did anything to us, but she ignored us and hated our presence in the house. She used to be super sweet with us in front of Dad, but in his absence, she was never bothered about us. I never spoke to her, but sometimes my sister would ask her about something, and she pretended that we didn't exist. She cursed us under her breath. She had no job except for leeching on my father's money. She shopped and spent time with her friends. Her family and friends were always lined up at our house. We could not do anything freely in our house. We had no privacy except in our room. Her family members were always in the house. It annoyed us so much, but we could not say anything. We were not evil kids. Our parents had instilled manners in us. We never crossed our boundaries, no matter how much we hated her. As soon as my sister completed her school, we both moved out. We both lived in our school and college hostels. Shortly after we left, Judy had a daughter. We never went home again because it didn't feel like ours with Judy and her daughter living there. The house now belonged to Dad's new family. Dad used to visit us and take us out, but eventually we distanced ourselves from him. Not that we hated him, but we were just not comfortable with him after he suddenly rubbed his new life in our faces. But Dad didn't give up. He still called us regularly to check on us and visited us. After college, my sister moved in with me in my apartment. By then, I was earning well in my job. A few years later, my sister also got a job and got her own apartment. Dad was proud to see us excelling in our careers. He is 65 now, and his health is not that great. This holiday season, he is inviting us to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with him. My sister and I both want to spend the holiday season with Dad, but we don't want to see Judy and her daughter. The last time we visited our house, about 5 years ago, was Dad's 60th birthday. Judy was annoyed at our presence and made it evident to us. She didn't speak to us, greet us, or offer us anything. We felt like strangers at her house. The guests were mostly her side of the family, except for a few of Dad's friends and colleagues. Now the thing is, in this situation, my sister and I are in a dilemma. Should we really spend the festivities with them, or should we skip it? Skipping it would hurt Dad. He had insisted we join him. But if we go, it means ruining our own mood. My sister suggested that we call Dad to our place and go on a vacation with him. But I think he wants to spend it with Judy and her daughter as well. They are his family too, like us. It would be unfair to ask him to choose between us and them. I dread meeting Judy, but I think we'll have to do this for my dad. We'll update the thread after the holidays. Now for the updates. Update 1, the holiday season is over. It was indeed special this time with Dad after so many years. It reminded me of the time when Mom used to be there. It used to be so much fun. I think Dad took his lessons from the last time, his 60th birthday incident. This time he asked Judy to keep her family away from Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas Eve. Dad invited his friends and relatives for a change. My distant uncle and aunts also joined the dinner. We met them after so many years. Judy and her daughter didn't seem to be happy. Judy always involved her family and friends on all the occasions at our house, and Dad was putting up with her all these years. But this time, when Dad insisted on only having his family, she resisted it. But Dad had now put down his foot this time, and Judy had to cancel calling her guests. I think now he's able to see the true colors of Judy. If Judy was evil, her daughter is 10 times more than her. She's no less than a monster. She's barely 12, yet she throws tantrums like an adult. She's just so narcissistic and wants the world to be around her. She wants everything at her fingertips. And if she doesn't get it, she screams and curses at the top of her voice and brings down the house. It was evident that Dad hated her attitude because me and my sister were always so obedient and civil. I think that's why Dad realizes how well my mother had raised us and how terribly Judy had raised her daughter. She was not happy that we were there. She was screaming that we were intruding on her private space by just sitting in the living room with Dad. I noticed Dad was furious at her and, in fact, did try to school her in private, but she has gone too far to be leashed. When we were leaving, Dad said that he would visit us in the next few months. My sister insisted that we go for a family trip, the three of us. For us, family is just Dad and us, not Judy and her daughter. Judy also never considers us family. In fact, I think she doesn't consider Dad to be their family. He is just a money-making machine for them. So we are going for a short trip next month. Hope this will rekindle the bond between us and Dad. Update 2. The trip was fantastic. We had a blast. We had never seen Dad so happy. We feel he's all so trapped in that relationship, but by the time he realized it, it was too late for him to take any action. He was just putting up with a monstrous mother-daughter duo. To our surprise, Dad stayed back with me after the trip. I felt like he didn't want to go back to Judy. I introduced my long-term girlfriend to Dad, and they both bonded well. She lives just next door. Dad was worried that his stay might be invading my privacy. I assured him that he could stay with us as long as he wanted. My girlfriend also pushed him to stay with me. She doesn't have a father, so meeting with mine was a good experience for her. She loves spending time with him, going for walks, shopping with him. My dad also treated her like a daughter. My sister lives close by, so she also used to drop by my house during my dad's stay. We had dinner together most of the days. On weekends, we went fishing or camping in the woods. It was just so good. We had never been so happy and complete before. Dad went back home a few days back, and we really miss him. He said he would visit us often now that he was retired from his work. It hurts me to see him lonely in his own house. He is getting old and not keeping fit. At this time, he needs the love and support of his family the most. I highly doubt he's getting it with Judy and her daughter. Me and my sister are trying our best to keep him happy. He said he would visit us again. Let's see, update 3. There is bad news. Dad passed away a week ago. I didn't get the time to update it early because of the other unnecessary hassle going around in our lives. After my last update on Dad's stay at my house, he visited us again 4 to 5 times in the last 6 months. He was just so lonely at his house. He served for opportunities to spend with us. With every visit, he looked weaker. He was not keeping well, but staying with us made him feel better. We couldn't be happier to have him with us. The last time he visited us, he broke down during one of the dinners. He said every time he visited us, he feared it would be the last time. We cheered him up and asked him to stay with us for a longer time. He stayed, but not for long. I wanted him to stay with me for the remaining part of his life. But the challenge was he had no friends near my place. He knew no one. We lived downtown where people barely talked to any strangers. When we were at work, he used to get bored. Living in his own house might be suffocating for him, but at least he had friends and neighbors to chill out with. Our world came crashing down last week when I got a call from my uncle about Dad's sudden demise. My sister girlfriend and I left for the house immediately. Judy didn't inform anyone about it. It was Dad's neighbors who had informed Uncle when he saw all of us missing from the funeral. Uncle then informed the other relatives for us. I called Judy to ask about the funeral. She didn't talk to me properly. Her daughter took the phone from her and said Judy was too distraught with the loss and wasn't in a state to talk. But none of them sounded depressed. We lived some 1,000 miles away, and it took us a while to reach that place. Uncle lived closer to the house, so he was able to reach before us. After reaching the house, he got to know from the neighbors that the body was already taken for burial, followed by the funeral. The neighbors also informed us that Dad was not keeping well for the last few days. He did not step out of the house for his walks. A day ago, he was rushed to the hospital when his pulse dropped, but Judy did not inform any of us. He didn't have any major health concerns. It was just that he was getting fragile, and his immunity was draining low. He passed away last day in the hospital bed. The next day was Dad's funeral. Judy had a day to inform us, but she didn't. When the neighbors didn't find any of Dad's side of the family, one of them called my uncle. By the time we got to know and rushed to the house, he was already taken to the burial. I called Judy several times, asking her to delay it for a while, but she didn't listen. She hung up the call every time. When we finally reached the churchyard, the funeral was already over, and they were coming out. My sister and I blocked Judy's way and asked her why she didn't include us in the funeral. She started yelling at us. She acted like a victim, that she had just lost her husband and we were troubling her. She said that we abandoned our father when he was alive, and now we are leeching around his dead body for property. Her daughter was no less. She abused us and threatened us to stay away from them. Judy's family members also intervened and yelled at us that we were evil and never checked upon our father when he was alive. My uncle defended us, but they were in dozens. It was such a heartbreaking and emotional day for us to lose our father. We just didn't have the energy to fight with them. We went inside and paid our tribute to the grave. Though we could not see him for the last time, I'm glad we spent enough time with him over the last few years. We sat for an hour near his grave and consoled each other. Uncle said that he heard Judy was organizing a prayer for Dad, but we knew we wouldn't be invited. That evil woman didn't let us attend our own dad's funeral. We cannot expect her to invite us for the prayers. We left for our place immediately after that. There was no point in staying there. It's been a week since we lost him, and we are yet not able to come to terms with the fact that he is no longer with us. We miss him so dearly. Update 4. Wow, life can take such a weird turn. It's unbelievable. A few hours after my last update, I got a call from my father's lawyer. He wanted us to be present for the will reading. He said it was supposed to happen on that very day, and he had informed Judy to ask everyone to be present. She said, okay, but when the lawyer arrived, he didn't find us. She said we were not required, and the will can be read in our absence. The lawyer said that Dad had mentioned very clearly that the will should be read in front of all the family members, and in that case, his firstborn son and daughter could not be left out. He gave us a week's time to fly down to his office for the will reading. My sister and I went there. Judy and her daughter were not happy to see us. They made faces. They had her family members accompanying her. I don't know them. While we were waiting for the lawyer to begin, Judy was bad-mouthing us, telling her family how stupid we were to fly down from so far just to see everything go to them. They called us greedy and said we never cared for her father and abandoned him. My sister lost it and gave it back to her. She told them it was Judy who was greedy and didn't let Dad inform us about his last hours. She wanted him to be isolated from us. She wanted to have everything to herself. They started yelling and arguing. The lawyer stepped in and calmed both parties down. We knew Dad was quite rich, but his wealth is inherited from his father. Dad is the only child of my grandparents, and all of their wealth was handed over to Dad. Dad never told us about his net worth, but Uncle said that he was the only heir to his parents' $1 million property. Judy didn't know it. She thought Dad just had the house, which was also in her name. She didn't know that Dad had kept all of his inherited property safe and handed it over to us. Dad had stated very clearly that he had distributed his wealth equally between his 2 children and his second wife, since he had retired, and the money from his job's retirement was in his name and could be passed on to Judy after his death. She didn't know that Dad owned 3 more houses, 2 close to my place, and another close to my sister's place. This was only known to the lawyer, Uncle, and Dad. All the property and wealth were given to us. To her surprise, we were millionaires. After the will was read, she was shattered. They couldn't believe it. The lawyer gave them the letter Dad had written to her, stating that his house would now belong to her and her daughter. They could live there or do whatever they wanted with it. The rest of the wealth was divided equally between me and my sister. We also were given the responsibility to manage Dad's burial and other rituals since Dad wanted us to perform those for him. Judy was inconsolable. She wanted to have it all to herself. But Dad was sensible enough to keep us and his wealth safe from her. She was crying and yelling at the lawyer and us. We just didn't care and left the office after signing the documents. We got our shares transferred to our accounts. Our uncle offered to take care of the rituals for us. It was hard for us to go back to the same place and deal with the loss again. He said he would keep the house keys and oversee the house while Judy was there. It's been a few days since we became millionaires, and I still cannot believe it. God is kind. He gave Dad justice. He gave us justice. We are going to stay close to each other and buy new houses. We will always keep our dad in our hearts and respect and love him for everything. Judy and her daughter got what they deserved. All is well now.